Okay, so you just bought a brand new guitar from, let's say, one of the best guitar makers in the world. Like either you got a PRS private stock, you got a Fender custom shop.
Yes.
Yes, great. Like, oh my God, it's like a 3-tone Sunburst, NOS. You're excited, just delivered to your door. But I'm not even gonna play it. I'm gonna send it straight to my Luthier.
Bam.
Stop. Hold the horses. Now there's situations where yes, that's a great thing. But we'll get into that in a minute. But in general, stop. No. I'll just lead in. Like, first off, like these guitars, like I know some of the guys that set at Fender in particular that are the final assembly guys, or at Loudon even, that they set up the guitar, they do it. There's just one guy at Fender. He sits on his bench. He's molded to the bench pretty much. He's not a tiny dude. He's like a full-figured man, just like, and he just sits there, and he's like, his arms are like sort of, he's in there, and he's like,
full-figured man.
Like,
I love that.
I've tried to be a full-figured man. It just doesn't work out for me. So
one day you can get there. You're still
there.
growing. You're still growing.
So I tell everybody, but no, but his job is to set up the finest instruments built on Earth every day, all day, and he knows how they come out, how they're spec'd out, and he's really good at it.
Yeah.
Now, does wood bend and shape some and transport across the world? Of course. Do you have certain preferences that you might want to set your guitar up to? Like, I like to have mine set with, like, open G tuning with 11s or something. Guess what? The Fender Custom Shop does that. So does PRS Private Stock. So does Gibson. If you ask them, they'll do whatever you want. Have them do it. Play it for a while before you tweak it. But you might have some other weird things that, I want it as low as possible. Ask them that as well. They'll do it. Like when you're working with the dealer, it's like, I want the action butter, low. What's butter low mean? I don't know.
It sounds really low.
Like low and slimy.
Like only a thin sheen of butter could be between
thin sheen of butter. It's like Waffle House perfection. But no, we've had so many situations. And we love our luthiers that we work with.
Yep.
And I love a lot of the luthiers. Like there's guys that we work with locally with us in the shop. There's guys at Hanson and Crawford that I think are some of the best in the entire state of North Carolina, up in Durham.
Yep.
There's some amazing luthiers out there, but there's a lot that are not.
That's true.
And sometimes you don't need to take a perfectly set up, beautifully done instrument just to have your luthier do it because you think it adds this extra level of greatness to it. The guitar's probably set up pretty.
And I mean, and to be fair to the luthiers, like if you bring them this amazingly set up custom shop and you're like, do something, they're gonna do something, right? So
that is their job. And,
and like with most things, you hit a peak and then it can only really go down.
I know, it's like just like even like some of the great luthiers, like they have this tendency to want to tweak,
right,
and do things.
That's why they're luthiers. They're tweakers. They do that.
They do. They keep doing sometimes that doesn't need to be done. It's like a great oil painting. Just leave it be. Like you have to put the paint and the palette down,
right?
Because the paint just has to be there. Done. It's good. Let it settle. It's not the same. This is a working, breathing piece of wood, I guess. So never mind. But same idea. Sometimes let it be. But it's.
So I guess what we're sort of saying is if you find a custom shop guitar, you order one, or you find one that you're just in love with, don't be so quick to run it, to have it tweaked or set up, because they're pretty darn amazing. Like I picked one up off the wall this morning that came in while I was gone over the weekend.
We haven't touched it.
Good Lord. It was, it's a Strat, and it's amazing.
I played it too. I was like, it's perfect.
It's perfect.
We can say we're going to do our 5,500 point inspection on it or in setup. You don't need to set it up. It's perfect. And we're going to set it up before we ship it out.
Sometimes I think people like look at the action or whatever, and maybe they don't take certain things into account, or they don't feel it. They're doing it with their eyes, not necessarily how it feels.
Right, like, I'm going to get my measuring tools out.
Right.
And it's like, just feel it first.
Feel it. Live with it for a minute. And
then
make adjustments if you want.
Sometimes luthiers, and some good friends of ours too, like they'll goof a guitar up every once in a while, like a brand new guitar, right out of like the production, or just
it happens.
But then it gets all weird, and then you're like, oh no, because I have it set up just like you don't have to have this done. Now luthiers are vital.
Yes,
we work with them every day.
We love them. We're not trash talking luthiers. We love.
But every guitar does not need one out of the box. Is what we're getting at. But we use them. Now, if you are very particular, like I said, I think it's have them set it up just like you want it. After you've lived with it for a few weeks, so you understand how the wood works maybe. And
also how it settles in back to wherever you are, because it's going to move and change a little bit.
Because most of these guitars are coming from, we were talking about PRS, that's in Maryland.
Yep.
If you're shipping out to Arizona, different climate.
A little different.
Fenders are coming from California or Mexico if it's, U.S. And then they're coming to us in North Carolina, but then we're shipping them back to who knows where overseas, anywhere. It's now certain companies I would say like maybe like Gibson's had its few little bumps in with their QC the past 5 years,
Right.
in their final assembly and setup. It's gotten a lot better. But some people do take those and immediately go to Luthier's. I kind of get it. Gretsch sometimes, yes.
Yeah, well, and we're talking about not doing it with like a Fender custom shop or a PRS private stock that is amazing. If you get a new guitar and it's buzzing, obviously take it to your Luthier.
Well, hopefully the guitar shop will
Hopefully
not send you one that's buzzing dramatically, unless but then. Yeah, and it cuts both ways too with like a Luthier, or just be careful doing it yourself too sometimes.
Sure.
And don't get me wrong, I do all my stuff myself and I mess things up. I do it right sometimes, and the experimentation part's fun, but once you do start tweaking it, it's hard to get it back to how it was.
Right.
It never will go exactly how it was. It's just, we've had a lot of guys that take it home, they'll get a guitar, they'll have it for a few weeks, they'll start tweaking it because they like to tweak them.
And then they bring it back.
They're like, hey, can you set this up how it was? And we try and we can't get it back quite.
Get it good.
Or they've shimmed it at this point. They've turned that truss quite a bit. They've done weird things with the pickups. We can get the pickups down, no problem. But the saddle's fine. But it's all over the place. Like when I see guitars come back with like shims that didn't have shims, I'm like, man, like the truss rod's like fully maxed out all of a sudden. I'm like, oh,
right.
And then I'll hear like, no, this is how it was like this. I'm like, no,
probably not.
Most likely not. I mean, there's a chance it happens. It does, but most likely not. Yeah, but in Gretsch's in particular, they're coming from overseas, most of them, unless you're getting a Gretsch custom shop.
Absolutely.
In California. So even like the pro pieces, the Japanese built ones, which are phenomenal.
They're such good guitars.
Way better than most of the vintage Gretsch's we played. Like the one we had recently, that vintage Gretsch was not nearly as good as like a classic new Duojet.
Any of the pros we've had,
any aspect. It was old.
I mean, it's cool.
It was cool. It didn't sound as good. It didn't play nearly as good, and it didn't always work. So it's kind of like,
oh, there you go.
Oh yeah. Well, that's an easy fix. Take it to your Luthier.
Right.
Speaking of that, it's funny. Totally side note. Remember the Bootlegger's Flame that we had?
Yes.
I've seen it. It's popped up on Instagram again.
Okay.
So they finally got it. It's an old '64 Strat we had. It was named the Bootlegger's Flame. Great story on it. But we love seeing these old vintage guitars pop up. And the Luthier did just do a great refret job. Nice. It looks like on it. It needed a refret. I hate doing that to vintage guitars, but it makes sense.
I think so.
You fell off the fretboard playing this thing.
Right.
But
the frets were a little rough on that one.
Yeah, and the Luthier, I think it was either Luthier, the owner was like, "See guitars? Do you have any more stories?" I'm like, man, I think just reach out to us on Instagram. We have tons of stories on it. That was a great guitar, and we had all the documentation from it, and it was just cool to see that from a Luthier on Instagram. And we were tagged on it. I'm like, yeah, definitely. We'll talk. I remember buying that guitar on the wife's of the owners. He passed away. His coffee table. It was cool, and we all connect this way now. Luthiers, and us. And the best is, and I pretty much don't know any Luthier that you can get away from without spending like a good hour just chatting about guitar stuff too.
Oh, that's kind of fun though.
It is fun.
Kind of the magic when you go take your guitar.
No, from our friend Dan to the guys at Hanson and Crawford, like those guys, like they will open up a guitar and they'll tell you
everything.
Like what if the wire is the correct wire use for that year,
right?
Or if it's been, they can tell immediately, like, oh, that was not what they were using in '56. I'm like, what? That's cool. Like, so I learned. So we go there and we'll sit there for an hour. Like, I'm like going to college right now.
Well, and Dan's really cool about. He will be like, hey, I'm going to do this. This is why, so that you understand fully, what is happening to what feels like your baby, your child, which I appreciate.
Yeah, it is, because it is. It's more important than our children in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Because they can actually make money for us, where our children just are a continual vacuum.
Just a drain.
A sucking sound of money.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, God help us. But anyway, so yeah, so just, I guess it's like, think before you just run and take to the Luthiers immediately. Like, you don't need to a lot of the times. But when you do, make sure you have a great one that you trust, not just your buddy. Having them become your buddy is cool. But even like Larry, like one of our guys, like our friends and great guy, like he's not a Luthier, but he's a great setup guy.
Oh yeah.
Like every once in a while, like you get a buddy that just like, he's a setup king. Like every guitar he brings in, set up perfect. I don't know how he does it. It's like,
he is really good. If you got a buddy who's going to help you, the litmus test is if that they have told you, no, I cannot do this, or I don't do this. If they've ever told you that, they're probably safe.
Yeah, that's right.
If they're just like, I'll do anything. Yeah, I got it. Refret, whatever.
No, watch the refrets.
That's right.
Oh my gosh, especially on the Gibsons. Anything with binding on that neck or whatever. Oh my gosh, there's horror shows. It's like cut in there. Gosh, we've seen some horror shows on Reverb too. Like we had a whole series come out of that. It never happened, but maybe it will. If you want to see the horror stories on Reverb Luthier stuff, let us know. But hey, that's it. Just like get a great guitar, play it for a while first. If then you decide it needs a setup, take it in there. Don't do it immediately. Let us know your thoughts on it too.
We would love to know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't already.
Especially if you're a luthier.
Oh.
We want to know your thoughts on hey, do you encourage everybody to bring a guitar to you immediately? We get it as a business, yes. But I bet most luthiers would be like, no. Like all the good ones I know is like, no, don't do that unless you have a specific set you need me to do or there's something that you want to tweak on it. Yeah. Now, I want to hear what Luthier's think. Please. Continue, John. I apologize.
Like and subscribe. Hit the bell. Don't miss videos in the future. Thank you guys for hanging out and chatting with us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.